I need a break from flat earth videos. Sure, they're fun, but there's more to life than demonstrating the abject stupidity of people who can't grasp basic geometry. Instead, in this video, I'll answer a question that I've often been asked. Why are you an atheist? This is a question I've been asked many times, and it's a weird question. I say this for two reasons. First, it implies there's something unusual about not believing in something for which no tangible evidence can be provided. I don't believe in UFOs. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in the Loch Ness Monster. Yet there's actually more evidence in support of those things than there is in support of a god of some sort. Yet Christians act as though theirs is a perfectly normal belief. The reality is that Christians are the weirdos for believing in this preposterous nonsense. The second reason why this is a weird question is it suggests that beliefs are a conscious decision. They're not. You will never find someone who's a Christian because he or she woke up one day and decided, I think I'll start believing in God now. That doesn't happen. They didn't decide to believe in God any more than I decided not to. Christians simply believe in God, and I don't. Ask any Christian when they decide to stop believing in Thor or Ra or Apollo or Ganesha or any of the Greek or Roman or Norse gods, and they will not be able to specify an exact point in time. This is because they never made the decision to stop believing in them. In all likelihood, they never started believing in any of them. On the other hand, they are no doubt aware that past and present cultures believed in at least some of these gods, yet for some reason they themselves never began to believe in them. Well, by way of books, television, and a variety of other sources, I was aware of these gods from a very early age, yet I never began believing them either. The Christian God is simply one more mythical deity that you can add to this list of things I've never believed in. Did I decide not to believe in them? No, I simply never believed in them. When you ask Christian apologists to provide evidence for their God, instead of providing anything tangible, they suddenly become armchair philosophers and come up with various flawed philosophical arguments. Here's some of my favorites. First, there's the Kalam cosmological argument, which in its most basic form states that 1. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. 2. The universe began to exist. Therefore, 3. The universe has a cause. They then assert that the only possible cause is their God. Not just a God, but their God. This falls down right from the start. As soon as you ask them to prove that whatever begins to exist has a cause, you'll get silence. This is not a provable statement. They might ask you to name something that began to exist without cause, but this is irrelevant. Not being able to name something is not proof that there is nothing. It's only proof that you can't name something. Also, in quantum mechanics, it's a proven fact that virtual particles pop into and out of existence all the time without cause. But let's ignore this and look at the universe as a whole. The universe is, by definition, the entirety of space and time. When the universe began, time began. If you assert that it must have had a cause, then you run into the problem with cause and effect. Cause must occur before, i.e. at an earlier point in time, than effect. So if time doesn't exist, the concept of before becomes meaningless, so the universe could not have been caused to exist. I can already foresee the theist's complaint. I'm saying that time began when the universe began. Can I prove it? Well, yes, I can. A corollary of the experimentally verified Heisenberg uncertainty principle is that at any point in time, energy must exist. Matter and energy are two sides of the same coin, and if matter exists, there must be space in which it exists. So, if time exists, space must also exist, and therefore the universe exists. In other words, if time exists, the universe exists. If the universe doesn't exist, time doesn't exist. At this point, I've disproven the first premise of the Kalam cosmological argument, and without that, the rest is moot. There are a number of variations of the argument that theists will use, but they all hinge on that first premise, which I've already shown to be wrong. Another argument theists like is the fine-tuning argument. Basically, this argument states that the universe is so finely tuned for life that it could only have occurred if it was created by an intelligent being. There are two common interpretations of this argument. I'll cover both. The first interpretation is that the universe is finely tuned for human life. This is demonstrably bullshit. The overwhelming majority of the universe is completely unsuited to human life. It's a vacuum. We would die. In fact, most of the Earth's surface is unsuited to human life. It's water. We would drown. The other interpretation is a little more complicated. It basically states that the fundamental constants in the universe are so exact that even if they were varied by 1 part in 10 to the 120, that's a 1 with 120 zeros behind it, matter couldn't exist, or stars or planets couldn't form, or some such thing. I couldn't find a legitimate scientific source for this assertion. The closest thing I could find was in the book Just 6 Numbers by Martin Rees. In it he says, quote, "This means that lambda, a cosmic anti-gravity that controls the expansion of our universe, in the remote past was larger by 120 powers of 10 than it could possibly be today," unquote. Which is a completely different statement. The other constants that he describes can be varied by amounts ranging from a few percent to a few orders of magnitude. But let's, for the sake of argument, say his assertion is correct. The universe couldn't exist if the constants were varied by as little as 1 part in 10 to the 120. So what? There are a number of hypotheses which could explain this without violating any known physics and without requiring any sort of deity. Until we understand how these constants arose, we won't know why they have the values that they have, and simply saying, "I don't know," does not equate to "God did it." There's another so-called proof of God that I think is hilarious. I think it's best described by this obnoxious blowhole.
You see, if we were to look at absolute truth, and we were to look at the totality of all knowledge, all scientific facts, everything, and we were to be able to draw a circle that would represent it, it would look something like this, broad and expansive and large. And yet it is that if you were to draw a circle of everything that you know, every experience, every scientific fact that you've ever learned, whether in school or study, it would probably look something more like this. Now, don't you think it's ironic that there's people that have lived in this little circle their entire life that are trying to claim that there's no God that exists outside of their knowledge? Therefore, because they've never experienced him, he doesn't exist.
He's just shown that I can't prove God doesn't exist. Great. I've never claimed that I could. I can't prove UFOs don't exist. I can't prove ghosts don't exist. I can't prove the Loch Ness Monster doesn't exist. Should I blindly accept the existence of those things as well? To be fair, some arguments that atheists use are, I think, fundamentally flawed. The most prominent of these is what has become known as the problem of evil. This argument, in its simplest form, states that the existence of evil disproves an omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent God. The Greek philosopher Epicurus phrased it best in what has become known as the Epicurean paradox. Is God willing but not able? Then he's not omnipotent. Is he able but not willing? Then he's malevolent. Is he both willing and able? Then whence cometh evil? Is he neither willing nor able? Then why call him God? On its surface, this sounds pretty convincing. The trouble is, it assumes some universal standard of good and evil. The reality is, good and evil are relative terms. They are subjective. Let's say, for the sake of argument, everything that you consider evil was somehow completely eliminated. Your standard of good and evil would simply shift so that things you don't consider evil today, the guy at Starbucks spelling your name wrong, would be. Often suffering is used in place of evil. Why would an omni God allow suffering, yada yada yada? The argument that was made for evil could equally well be applied to suffering. If everything you considered suffering today was somehow alleviated, your conception of suffering would shift. Imagine Bob Geldof organizing a concert to wipe out the scourge of male-patterned baldness. Anyway, that's just putting in my 2 cents worth. If you agree, great. If you don't, that's okay too. If you want to like and subscribe, I won't stop you.